who are just tuning in for the very first time to Art Lounge, this is a great opportunity for you guys to see all the tiers that are available and different ways you guys can participate and be part of the Art Lounge stream. So without further ado, this is the Art Lounge page. I'm going to be going over it real quick. So the first tier is the patron only, official patron tier. For $2 a month, you get access to the Discord server. Your name is going to be listed in the credits. That's right, I'm going to start doing credits at the end of the stream. And you will also be part of the patron-only community. Then the next tier, $5 a month, you get early access to finished pages. You get to see all the content before anybody else or any other social media platforms that I post to regularly. You will get to see any of that content before them. And you'll also get exclusive content, so content that has never been shown, isn't going to be shown on any other social media platform aside from Patreon. And you'll also get all the previous tier benefits as well. Then the next tier, and this is where you guys can really participate and be part of the stream. Tier 3, critique submissions tier. There's some requirements there, so I highly encourage you guys to take a look and read through each tier to get a better idea of what you need to know. And you guys can always ask me questions and I'll be glad to answer them. In this tier, if you are working on something, if you're an illustrator, you're working on something, you want to get some critique, you want to get some help, you want to get some perspective or just tips on ways you could improve, this is a great tier for you. So after you submit it, you also include your social media link if you'd like to any of the other work that you've got, so other people can check it out and see what else you're cooking. There are some requirements there as well, so as I mentioned, read through it, get yourself familiar with it. I'm not going to get into too much detail. You guys can also check out the highlights section on Twitch. There is a video that is specifically for the Patreon page launch and the schedule change, so you can go through it. It's about 30 minutes. Gives you an idea of each tier, what the benefits are, what to expect, and all that jazz. Then let's move on to the next one. Oh, and quick mention, it's going to be held every Friday. So instead of the regular stream that you guys have been seeing, it's going to be 2 hours of critique. So you'll have an opportunity to have your work featured on there. It won't be one, it'll hopefully be several. Then the next tier, Kickstarter patron, is $25 per month. You guys always are welcome to make a one-time submission. But for those who do, you will be getting a high-resolution digital painting of you. I'm going to be doing it on stream, and I'm going to be sending you guys the finished result, the PSD file, or the high-resolution image to you, so you can do whatever you like. Make it your profile photo, send it to somebody that's close to you. It's yours. You can keep it. You can do whatever you'd like. Masks, makeup, glasses, expressive face expressions, hats, and accessories are all encouraged, but not required. I think it'll just make the stream more fun, and it'll make your profile look cool. But yeah, it's not required. You could send me just a simple photo of you from your head down to your chest, and I'll do the digital painting on stream. And that's going to be held on Thursdays. So instead of what you guys are going to be seeing today, which is drawing basics and the project stream, it'll be 2 hours of digital painting of patrons. And you also get the previous tier benefits as well. Then the next one is tier 4, artist promotion. So this is mainly for intermediate or advanced artists. So if you're an artist, you're interested in Art Lounge, you'd like to be part of it, this is a great opportunity. And as you guys could see, there's many openings. So it's not only for illustrators, it's pretty much for anybody who is interested in the art field, who does all sorts of stuff, and they have a website, they have content that they're posting regularly, and they want to share their work. So this tier is great for that. You get a 5-minute video. Well, you need to submit a 5-minute video showing what you'd like, putting it together however you'd like, timing your work however you like, and I will be showing it, and I also will be promoting it to all the social media platforms. I think it's a good image to have somebody else promote your work as well. So you guys are going to have that exposure. You're going to have the 5-minute airtime on the the Art Lounge website. And there's many other benefits to it as well. I'm not going to get into that. It's going to take up more of the stream. But read through it. There's some important information for getting selected, especially. I don't want you guys to join this tier, spend $25 and then find out that you're not selected and have that refunded. It's just going to be a lot. There is a process to it that is more simple. You sign up for tier 1 for the selection process, and if you're selected, then I let you guys know you can join this tier and you can submit your video. So there's a bunch on there. You definitely want to read through that before you join the tier. Then the next tier is tier 5, private tutoring, $65 per month. You get 4 personal video lessons per month. I'm going to send you one each week. It's going to be a 30-minute video. There's going to be homework, and you will also get a private Discord channel dedicated just to you. So it's going to be a one-on-one. You can leave me comments. You can leave me questions you have. You can leave me your progress so that I can show you guys more stuff in the next video. And you will also get a PSD file. So whatever I work on in the video, you're going to be able to see and explore at your own pace and at your own time, and yeah, help you improve. Which also is the same case for the homework. I really want you guys to improve, so homework assignments are going to be great for you throughout the week. Since you're only going to get 1 video per week, it's going to give you something to work on and keep you motivated, hopefully, to keep going and keep practicing. So yep, there's that, and you get all the previous tier benefits as well. And as I mentioned, you guys should definitely check out, if you're interested, check out the posted video about the Patreon page launch and the schedule change. All right, guys, so that's pretty much it. Just wanted to give you guys a brief overview of it, and I will be jumping into drawing basics. I'm going to continue from where I left off yesterday, and that is, hold on 1 second. That's with the head. You know, I started showing you guys examples of ways that you could improve drawing the head. We started out with something very basic, which is drawing a circle. That's something I mentioned plenty of times, how important it is to be able to draw that shape perfectly, because if it ends up looking deformed, everything else on the body is going to follow, especially if you're following the head as the unit of measurement, which is the best way when you're learning to understand anatomy, understand proportion. Just going to give you guys a quick example of what happens when you do avoid that. It should be here. Where are you? Where are you? Distorted heads. No, it was later. There you go. Okay. There you go. So this is an example of what happens when people avoid drawing the head actually in its perfect shape. Trying to draw the circle perfectly. This is kind of like deformed, warped version of it. And as you could see, if you use the head as the unit of measurement, if you measure that and you follow the guide to using the head as a unit of measurement, which is 3 heads across for the width of the body, you could see how it becomes pretty distorted. And pretty much everything else as well. You know, the arm isn't following that proportion if you're measuring it as half a head, right? The width of the arm is half the head. So if you got this oblong looking head, you measure that half, and then you measure the arm, and you're going to be like, well, that looks right. But obviously it doesn't. This is an example of the body in its full proportion, following the head as the unit of measurement and making sure that the head is drawn properly to make sure everything else is drawn in proportion. This is another example of the opposite extreme, where somebody doesn't follow it and they're drawing the head almost like a seed shape, you know, or just like a really narrow head. And then if the same rule applies again as it does here, you use the head as the unit of measurement for the width of the body, 3 heads across, right? You measure it out and it looks right based on that measurement, but the head is wrong. And then as you go through the entire body using the head as the unit of measurement, everything becomes just as narrow as the head. This is an example of a disconnect between using the head as the unit of measurement and the body. It still looks wrong. And another extreme example of that, where the head is kind of like a pick shape, you know, for a guitar. And then once again, if you're going to use it as a unit of measurement for everything else, you're going to have this width. That's really weird. You know, if you're going to measure the width of the body, it's going to be this broad. And then when you start measuring the waist, or the hips rather, the unit of measurement for the hips is 1.5 heads. So you measure that out, it's going to be this narrow or wide, and then having to connect the torso to it, you're going to get this extreme shape. So you could see how pretty much everything else in the body really starts to kind of resemble the head of the shape as well. And it's like, if you look at it, this is the guitar pick head, and then the body is just like this massive guitar pick head, guitar pick as well. It's just something that happens considering you're using the head as a unit of measurement. All right, so just that idea that it really is important to draw the head properly, to make sure that you draw the circle right. Don't jump into really complicated stuff if it's a battle that you're still fighting. You know, you want to make sure that you get past that before you really start jumping into complicated stuff. Or if you do, still make sure to practice to draw the circle as perfectly as you can. Of course, it's really hard to say what is exactly the perfect version of it, but as close and as best as you can to that shape. And just practice it over and over and over again. The benefit of having one of these little sketchbooks, hand-sized, fit in your pocket. You could sit around when you have idle time and practice drawing these basic shapes. Okay, so what I was demonstrating here, drawing the head, I was mentioning to you guys the most important thing you can do when you're drawing the face is, first of all, create these guidelines to make sure that everything lines up. You don't want the eye to be slightly higher or lower, angling towards the right side, angling more towards the left side. These guidelines help to make sure that things are that don't look deformed, don't look distorted. So get in the habit of doing that. And as I've mentioned, this is something as a common example, you know, it's just like reading. You eventually learn the alphabet and you don't have to recite it every time you sit down to read, right? So the same thing happens here. These guidelines, these unit of measurement concepts all become second nature, just like reading has become second nature for you as well. You just don't think about it as much. You know the words, you know the definitions to them. You don't have to look up the definition for every single word every single time you see it. So, you know, the same thing here. Eventually you won't have to draw all these guidelines every single time you sit down to draw. It becomes so ingrained in your memory, you know, in your visual library, that you just do. You know, what you see is what you end up doing on paper, in your mind, that is, in your imagination. Whatever you see ends up going on paper because it's so vivid, because you've trained your hand and your eye to connect with each other. That's what hand-eye coordination is. it's not just visually, it's also mentally. Your hand and your eye are connected. So whatever you see in your imagination or whatever you see that's on paper ends up translating into your hand, and you're able to just to draw them out. And as I mentioned, you guys are probably, some of you are new, and you're watching it for the first time, but in the first few episodes of Drawing Basics, I mentioned several artists who've gone in full circle, where they started out drawing these guidelines, or rather, they started out by tracing the silhouette. So when they start out drawing the face, they would go from there, the chin, and they would start drawing the nose, that sort of thing, without any guidelines, without any sort of process. Or let's say they start out with the eye and then build from there, and just continuously build until they reach to the bottom of the image, rather than sketching everything out and making sure it's all proportionate. And then eventually they switch to doing these guidelines to give themselves a better understanding. And then, as I mentioned, eventually they didn't need to have those guidelines around. So kind of a full circle. They started out with not a lot of understanding, a lot of experience, but taking on a tactic that more advanced artists do, because they just have such a great understanding, because they have so much practice, because their hand-eye coordination is really in sync and has gotten a lot of exercise. So yeah, that's basically what happens. You don't have to draw this forever, all these guidelines forever. That's something that is necessary in the beginning if you want to improve quickly, if you want to get a better understanding, as opposed to just kind of vaguely going about things. So yeah, that's the benefit of them. And as you've seen, by drawing this line down the middle, it allows you to compare things. For example, you could see that the eye is actually centered. If you move, let's say if you don't have that guideline in the middle, chances are you might actually start drawing the eye here, and it might end up being a little too close to the other one, or too far apart, or too far apart, meaning going towards the ear side. But this allows you to just kind of really pick up on that detail. Notice, okay, is the nose actually centered, or is it slightly, even though it's a front shot, it's slightly angled more towards the right or the left? So it's a really important guideline. In the beginning, you want to get your eye used to seeing the face that way when you draw it in its correct proportion. So yeah, moving on to the next thing. In this image I was demonstrating to you guys, this is what these arrows represent. Pay attention to the distance between the corner of the eye and the nostril. It's a really important detail, because it changes the image or the likeness when you're, let's say, trying to draw somebody, whether it's a friend or a photo reference or somebody in real life. It changes it from looking realistic to looking kind of weird. This is an extreme example of somebody who just doesn't really pay attention to that detail, that distance between the corner of the eye and the nostril, and they get results like this. Now, if you're doing comics, maybe that's fun, but again, you want to first establish a good foundation for yourself, a good understanding of the human figure, good understanding of anatomy, before you really start playing with style, or before you start, playing around with the face and sort of that sort of thing. I'm not saying it's a strict rule that you shouldn't even bother drawing. That's not it at all. But if you are interested in actually gaining a stronger understanding of anatomy, a stronger understanding of proportion, you have to draw a certain standard. So this is the kind of standard of it. These standard rules. Lines might vary, like the thickness or the width or the height of certain facial features, but fundamentally these are the rules to things. You don't want that distance to be too wide of a gap. You don't want the distance between the nostril and the lips to be too wide of a gap, and they both kind of line up with each other towards the center. That gap between the lips could be smaller or shorter, but it still has to be kind of centered with the center of the nose. And the eyes have to be lined up with each other. They can't be higher or lower, it's just going to look deformed. I'm sure you guys get it. So moving on, just showed you guys the difference between having more of a broader chin and how that kind of gives the drawing more, an adult look. Like if you look here, this face, it resembles more of like a teenage face. But once you start adding a little bit more width and girth, I guess, to the chin area, it starts to resemble more of an adult male. You know, you're giving it more masculine features in a sense, and they start dropping their youthful look in a way, despite it kind of being similar. Also, how the hair doesn't exactly rest on the line or come from the line of the top of the head, meaning like if I was to draw hair, it would just, the hairline would be here and other places that it is on the face, but the external part of it would be basically the circle that you drew, which is wrong. As you could see here, the hair rests on top of that line, on top of this line. So it gives the head a little bit more height in a sense. So that's pretty much it for that. I think it's just a really important detail to pay attention to. I'm going to try to draw another face here, slightly smaller in profile view, and just to show you guys how really it's kind of similar of a process. Everything gets tilted. So this basic shape, right? Like let's say you just don't see the detail. This basic shape gets tilted. So the circle and the cup shape, it's tilted, and the line gets tilted as well. So the guiding line gets tilted, and that way you guys can use it for developing the profile version of the face. And the same thing applies here. You have to make sure you pay attention to how far the eye is from the nostril. So I'm going to draw the nostril here. And try not to draw the nostril too large. You know, that's also a very important detail. You might make the features of the face look a little bit too big while the eyes are really small, and that's not going to look right. There's a fine line there. You know, there are people, of course, who have bigger noses, bigger nostrils, or you know, bigger eyes or whatnot, but it starts to creep into, like, how do I put it, inexperienced drawing, an inexperienced drawing as opposed to face variation. So you want to make sure you pay attention to that. You want to avoid doing this kind of mistake. And as I mentioned, you could play around with this stuff, like erase it, right? Like I'm not erasing for the sake of demonstration, but as you're playing with it, you could be like, I wonder what it's going to look like if I move it a little bit closer, a little further down, a little bit further in, or up. You know, that's the whole idea. You just kind of sketch around, you know, draw, experiment yourself and see what you notice, or what you whether you could detect, like, yeah, that kind of does look off. It looks like a deformed face or head. So moving on, also notice how the brow is kind of right in the middle of the eye, but the eye doesn't exactly fit into the groove of the eyebrow. So let me just show you. Like this is the profile view of it. This is the nose. This is the brow. Make sure you don't draw the eye within the brow area. You see that? And like this is the nostril. This is the brow area right here. So this is another mistake. People don't really understand it or pay attention to it. And they draw the eye within that bridge and brow area, thinking, okay, well, it kind of like looks like a placeholder for it, but it really isn't. So here's the correct way of doing it. As you could see, like that bridge is right where the eye is usually. And the eyebrow really belongs in that area. So here's just a demonstration for you guys, and you could see the difference there. You see that? This is like in the area of the brow. This is below it, with the eyebrow in that area instead. And that's another really important detail. Like as I mentioned, that's something, a very common mistake that people make. Now it's a really challenging angle, because every little thing changes the profile image. So if you don't draw the eye within the eyebrow groove, if you, let's say, draw the line of the lips a little too far out, it's going to start to look distorted or deformed. If you, let's say, have the mouth come out way more than the brow line, as you could see, like you draw a line straight down, you could see that the eyebrow, the brow area, is almost in line with like the chin. And I did have to erase to just show you guys a little bit more clearly. Clean up the lines a little bit. Also pay attention to the hairline, the distance between the hairline and the brow. That really plays another important role. And as we mentioned, the hair doesn't start from where the circle is for the head. It sits on top of it. So this is your hair. And the ear is drawn past this middle line, so it shouldn't be sitting on top of it. It's another really important detail. The distance between the eye and the ear should be pretty wide. You don't want to make it too narrow. That's going to make the head look really narrow as well. So you want to avoid doing that. But as I was saying before, that guideline, drawing the head and then having it tilted, right, with the line going down the middle, tilted as well, it's just a approximation. It's not exact. In some ways, you could play around with it. Just relatively close, as opposed to being exact when it comes to the profile. And once you get that down, then the rest of the things you could play around with a little bit more, like making the nose a little bit longer. Making the eye a little bit smaller or lowering it a little bit. And also, when you draw the eye, make sure that, like, you see how it's like a right angle kind of. Or not a right angle, but it creates like this angle, right, for the eye. Pay attention to this line right here, the bottom line. You don't want it to be straight like this when you're drawing the profile. You want to give it an angle. Notice the difference there. So not like this for the eye. But more like that. The angle is pointing more upwards. Do you see the difference there? You can draw the nose. And notice again, the brow area is higher than the eye. Looks a little bit weird. I'm trying to jam it into the same page, so I'm just going to move over and do another demonstration of it. So again, with the circle, this time it's tilted. We got the line down the middle. Can draw the neck. Notice again, the angle of the eye is pointing upwards. It's not straight down. And you get a better and better understanding from practicing. You know, I'm giving you guys some things to pay attention to, but as I mentioned, that's something you get a better understanding of by paying attention to people. When you're drawing, draw different types of people, not the same kind of person every single time. So that way you can notice the slight variation from person to person when it comes to these features, like the angle of the eye, for example. How far the eyebrow is from the eye, nostrils. All these things just kind of give you a better understanding. And not only that, but you also get to see the similarity. So even though they're different people, different looking people, you can still notice how there is this quality about these features that are similar. So I highly encourage you guys to draw from photos. Draw from real life. Draw your friends. And just pay attention to these proportional aspects. The relationship between objects is something that I like to call it as well. Like, for instance, the distance between the bridge of the nose and the eye. You know, how big is that gap? I'll be showing you guys more. I'll be doing more demonstrations when it comes to the profile one, but just a brief overview, just to give you a slight idea, give you some pointers on what to pay attention to. And yeah, just the smallest things can really change the drawing. You know, for example, the eyelid. You don't want to draw it too big, you know, because then it starts to kind of look cartoonish, a little bit wonky. You don't want to draw the nostrils too big. And the same thing happens there. But verbally, there is no shortcut. You just get these clues, you get these ideas, you get these hints, but essentially it really comes down to you practicing it with your hand, with your eye, and connecting those more and more with each other. Because visually you could look at something and be like, yeah, I see it. But then having to sit down and actually draw what you see, it becomes a problem for your hand and your eye, and how synced they are, how much your hand listens to what your eye is seeing. And that comes with training. You know, that just comes in practicing over and over and over again to develop it more. So moving on, we got the 3/4 view. So everything kind of just gets shifted over. And notice I'm not giving the pencil death grip. I'm making sure that throughout the entire process, I'm keeping it kind of loose in the beginning. I'm not dedicating myself to any sort of lines yet. I'm just giving myself some parameters to work within. So when it comes to the 3/4 view, make sure that when you draw the mouth, that the bottom of the lip isn't incredibly close to the chin. That is another very common mistake when people draw the head. That's one of them. The other part is the width of the eyes are different. Because the eye is curving further away from the camera, you know, it's not an extreme curve. Again, this is a 3/4 view, so you do still get to see some part of the other side, which in this case would be the left side turning further away from the camera. But differences do start to appear more. You don't want to make it too small either, because then it's going to look distorted. The head isn't turning that much. It's not that curved. For the left eye, the eye that's on the side of the curving, becoming smaller and smaller, that would just mean that it really is turning around more as it's making way around the head. So you want to make sure that even though there should be a distant difference in terms of eye width, it's very, very slight. Don't give it that really extreme difference. I'm going to try to see if I could demonstrate that very quickly. This is the 3/4 view. This is where the eyes are. Mouth. So here's one eye. And here's the other one. So you might think, well, yeah, you know, I'm trying to stay in perspective here. If the eye is turning further away, shouldn't it be smaller? And while that's true, you don't want to do the extreme of that. So this is an example of the eye being too small while the other one is big, because you want to draw it in this understanding. If the head is turning, that means the eye is getting smaller. It's not in perspective. It's not a straight shot, rather. So that's not true, and it ends up making your drawing look really weird. You start to run into all sorts of problems. You know, either you have to draw the eye really close, touching the bridge of the nose. You know, because again, the bridge of the nose starts to obstruct the view of the eye as it starts to turn further and further away from the camera. So either you do that with the eye, and because it's so small, everything else starts to kind of come closer and closer, shrink in a way. Or you draw it further away from the bridge of the eye, and that looks weird too, because then it seems as if though the eye is actually a lot wider. I'll try to do a quick demonstration here. So here's an example of having the eye try to follow this understanding that, oh, because it's turning further away from the camera, because the head is slowly turning the other direction, that the eye is smaller. So here it is. It's smaller because of this idea, but it's not touching the bridge of the nose because you want to maintain its size. You want to maintain that it's small. And here's the same exact idea, maintaining it being small, but touching the bridge of the nose. And you could see how everything kind of like shrinks inwards, goes in more. So neither of these images are correct. You are making a mistake if you're doing either of these things, either making the eye too small and having it not touch the bridge of the nose, or making it small and having it touch the bridge of the nose. So you have to kind of find that middle ground. Really, that's what it's all about, is like you're slowly adjusting to middle grounds in your drawing. You're trying to stay away from extremes. Too long of a face, you know, as we were talking about the distance between the bridge of the nose. Sorry, not the bridge of the nose, the corner of the eye and the nostril, and keeping that short, you know, not making it really long and having a weird looking face like that. So yeah, you're just slowly noticing these things and finding that balance between both, not too long, not too short, and hitting the sweet spot where it starts to look natural, it starts to look more realistic. And when you are drawing the face, especially from real life, stay away from making hard angles. You know, this is something that I've noticed that people like to do as a style, where they either make the tip of the nose really sharp, when really there's more curvature to it. There's nothing on the face that's that angular. You know, there's nothing that really is such a sharp difference. You know, that really comes more in style than it does come from reality. Like, for instance, the chin area, there's no sharp lines there. The cheekbone, the same idea, no sharp lines. The brow area, no sharp angles there either. So that really drastically also improves your likelihood of like capturing somebody's image, face expression, or any of that, when you start really avoiding making these really, really sharp angles. And as I mentioned previously, you could do that later. You know, you can always start to stylize things, but first, grasp this foundation, grasp this reality in a sense, because it does train your eye to be better at detail. And as you notice, it's important to notice detail, like when we're talking about the distance between the corner of the eye and the nose, to be able to draw a likeness, to draw the realness to it, to capture the person and make it more relatable, so that when somebody looks at it, they're like, oh yeah, it really does look more like a real person than anything else. And then from there, you could start playing around with things. So paying attention to the distance between eyebrows, that's also a very helpful tip as well. You don't want the distance, the gap between them, to be extremely wide. The entire process is knowing what to look for. The entire process of trying to draw something, copy something, draw the resemblance of something or someone, is just noticing the right details, noticing the right difference, or the design of the face. So if you'd never paid attention to this being an important thing, the corner of the eye to the tip of the nostril, you're more likely to make that mistake and then scratch your head and wonder why it looks kind of deformed, or why it just doesn't look right or sit well with you. But once you start noticing it, it's kind of hard to unsee it. You're like, oh, okay, yeah, I see that I made that mistake. Let me see if I correct it, and that really changes things up. Paying attention to the lip, the bottom of the lip and the chin, like, is that distance decent, or is it too wide of a distance, or too short of a distance? That also plays an important role. So a lot of drawing is paying attention to little details to improve and get better and make your drawing look better. Whoa, it's 9:01, y'all. I did go into a bit of a tangent there. So I'm gonna have to cut it here, everybody, for Drawing Basics. I'm gonna take a 5-minute break, and I will be back for the project stream, which I'm excited to continue. So stick around. If you guys enjoy the content, hit the like and subscribe button. It'll help the Art Lounge community grow, and it will be greatly appreciated. So stick around, everyone. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Welcome, viewers, to Art Lounge. This is the project stream. It's something that I've been working on for some time. It's been, I want to say, about a week, maybe, of working on this portrait. It's a model that I was intrigued by. But before I jump into that, I would like to do a brief overview of the Patreon page for those who are just tuning in. This is your very first episode. This is the Patreon website. So I'm going to start at the very top here. We got, and this is going to be a brief overview. You can check out the page launch in the collections tab. There's a video dedicated specifically for the Patreon page launch. Talks about each and every tier in detail, and you guys can always ask me questions about it to get a better idea, or if there's something that you just doesn't make sense to you, we can talk about it more there. You can post your questions in chat. You could send me a message in any of the social media platforms, and I'll be happy to answer them. So yep, this is tier 1, the official patron for $2 per month. We also got tier 2, which is all access to the content that's on Patreon. So you get early access to finished pages and exclusive content. You also get a work in progress and behind scenes, access to the Discord server, which is really important. And I talk about that in that video stream as well. Then we got tier 3, critique submission tier. This is a great way for you guys to get involved in Art Lounge, in the art stream. You can submit something that you're working on, some illustration that you're working on, and I will do a live critique. And that's going to be held on Fridays. For 2 hours, I'm going to be critiquing your work. And I'll also be promoting your social media. So if you have a DeviantArt or Instagram with more of your work, or if you have some other platform that shows more of your work, you can share it and I will promote it on stream along with your work. Then we got the Kickstarter patron. For $25 per month, you will have a high resolution digital painting of you. You could do a one-time submission. And you will get access, you will get all the previous tier benefits as well. So along with the high resolution digital painting, you'll get the PSD file or high resolution file for you to do whatever you like. You could make it your social media avatar or send it to somebody who's close to you. Then the next tier, Tier 4, Artist Promotion. This tier is for intermediate or advanced artists. So if you'd like to promote your work, you will get 5-minute airtime. Does require you to submit a 5-minute video, and that way you guys can pace it out at however you'd like. And it is available, and it's open to all forms of art. So if you know somebody who's in any of these fields or other and would like to get some promotion time, and just be part of the art community, this is a great tier for it. There's some requirements on here. I highly suggest you guys to read through it to get a better idea. And as I mentioned, you could always ask me questions and I'll be happy to respond. Then we got tier 5, private tutoring. So if you're looking to get more hands-on experience, more hands-on interaction, this is a great tier. You'll get 4 videos per month, 1 video a week of 30 minutes showing you where you could improve on what you submit. So before you get the first video, you got to submit some work that you would like to improve on or to work more on, and I will send you a video showing you exactly that. And you'll also get a private Discord channel, so be just between me and you. There are only 15 spots. That's all the time that I have currently. So every single person is going to have their own private channel, and you guys can leave me comments, you can leave me questions there, you can leave me your progress there, and I'll talk about it in the stream, or the video rather, that I'm going to be sending you each week. There's going to be homework, so you guys can improve, you can get better. Yeah, and there's some more detail on there, but I highly encourage you guys to read through it. I am going to now jump to drawing. So if you guys are just tuning in, I started the coloring process on it. And I'm very excited. It's actually coming close to finish. You know, I'm not really planning to go into a lot of coloring detail. It's just mainly going to be trying to capture the right colors that I like. Maybe playing around with some things here and there and not making it exactly the same as the colors of the model. We'll see. But one thing I will make sure to have the same would be the color of her eyes, which is what really gravitated me towards this, to the model. She has very unique eyes. They are like gray, green, and blue all together. It's kind of hard for me to figure it out, actually, and I think that's why I'm pretty intrigued by her as a model. So I have things separated in a layer. I got the skin on a different layer, I got the hair on a different layer, and obviously the line work on there. And I'm going to continue to separate things, like for instance, I'm going to work on the lips right now because I want to be able to play around with those colors individually. That's one of the best things about these about digital process, is that it really gives you more room for all sorts of things, more room for error. You know, if you make a mistake, you know you could easily just undo it with a click of a button. And that's not the same case when it comes to traditional. If you guys are part of the previous stream, you saw me erasing some detail and then it being there slightly still, you know, it's just how it ends up working if you don't pay attention to how hard you press. I am going to also make the nose ring a different layer as well. It'll give me a chance to play around with the shade. I'm actually going to make all this about the same layer. The jewelry is about the same color. And that seemed to be really the post. The purpose of her post is to like advertise these jewelry pieces, I'm guessing. Let's skip this song. So just to double check to make sure all the jewelry are on the same layer. All right. And I'm just kind of laying down all the different colors. Not really going into too much Not going into too much detail there. I'm also putting the tattoo on a different layer as well. Yeah, I really like the freedom of playing around with things when it comes to the digital process. Like, I think with traditional, it's a lot more restricted. Like, if you guys have been part of the coloring comics stream prior to the schedule change, you guys saw me do some watercolor work, and that process is very much not forgiving. A lot of the painting process, I mean, in comparison, right? Because of course you could play around with things more if you're doing it traditionally. It's just going to become more layered in a sense. You know, when you are when you're painting, you can cover up your mistakes by doing another layer over it. Whereas with digital, you could just erase it, you know, relatively quickly and start fresh. So traditionally, it takes more time to correct a mistake. So everything kind of has its advantages and disadvantages. Like the advantage of traditional work for sure is it's away from digital stuff. You're taking a break from computers. You're not constantly staring at the screen for 11 hours or whatever, however long you're spending on drawing. You get to feel the mediums actually. Whereas if it's digital, you're really just feeling plastic. And to me personally, I find it to be a faster process drawing than I do digital. Coloring is a different story, and I find that coloring is a little bit easier when it comes to digital. But just to highlight, you know, there are definitely perks and downsides to both. I think I'm gonna skip this song. Boop. gonna zoom out to see how that looks. And here is the benefit of it. I could really play around with this color now. I can give it a completely different color if I wanted to. But I like that like grayish blue color of tattoos. Might have to actually give it more of a blue tint. Might be too much. I'm kind of saving the best for last. But it's coming up. It should be the very next thing. Uh-oh. I'm drawing on the same layer as the tattoo. I want to avoid that. I'm going to create a new layer for this because maybe at some point I might want to play around and see if a different color might look good. Now, I'm going to take a minute to actually name these layers so that it becomes more apparent. Since I'm adding more layers, it becomes a little bit confusing. And prior, it was only just a few, whereas now it's up to 10 layers. This is jewelry. I'm gonna name this tattoo, obviously. And then this is hair tie. Yeah, let's just keep hair tie. I did notice as I'm like changing these layers that I missed some detail right here. I keep having this battle of like, well, how much of the likeness do you want to capture? You know, considering that the drawing itself is pretty simplified. I'm not going into a lot of shading. I'm not going into a lot of minute little details here and there. But at some point I'm like, should I draw more detail with it, or what really? I'm gonna add a new layer and I'm gonna call this blush, because she does have some blush on there. And I think that adds I'm going to see what I can do with this, because obviously this looks ridiculous when you have it at that strength, but in a minute I'm going to change the color. And the opacity of it. To see where that leads. Now, it may look kind of funny right now, but I'm hoping that by making this color change I'm about to do, and lowering the opacity on it, that it's going to transform the image. Alright, so first, let's change the Let's see what happens when I give it more saturation. Kind of looks like a rash. I don't know. I don't think it's turned it out as good. I might have to like define it a little bit better. Do more of a color balance here. Well, nope. I'm looking for a very specific color. It's like a raspberry red. No, it's not raspberry. It's like it's hard to say what it resembles. I'm gonna try to find it and see if trying to see if maybe this enlightened might look better. No. Ooh, that looked rough. It also plays an important role, like trying to shape that color right. I'm just gonna delete this whole selection. I'm kind of tempted to play around with like fading slightly, just to see what it looks like. But I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be a fan. Whoa, no, that's not good. Not what I'm looking for at all. So far, it's proving to be a disaster. trying to add slight shading there. Just because it's such a prominent feature as well on the reference. I don't want to get too carried away with it. I'd like to still maintain the simplicity of it. I'm gonna play around with the lips. This is where it really helps. So this is more of like where the original is. It's like right about there. Maybe a little bit closer towards the red. I'd say like right there. Smidge more towards the red. But I do like this purplish red as well. So I'm trying to decide. I can always play around with it later. So maybe for now, I'm just gonna stick to the original. And we got jewelry. Now I am going to go into the important detail. Now I see it's coming from... Where is this layer? Blush, right, okay. I did label it. So, new layer, I'm gonna call this eyes, obviously. And... I'm going to start out with gray as the base. And I noticed that I drew her lashes thinner than they actually are. This is like the big moment where the image really does come to life. So I find it very important to like draw them as accurately as possible. And this is where the challenge is going to start to kick in of mixing the colors well, so that there's blue, there's gray, and there's green as well. This is more of like a test, really, to see how it's going to turn out, and then I'm going to go into more accurate depiction of it all. Just want to get the colors out. Also, I have to color the inside of the eye. Which adds more color to the face. I don't know, y'all. This is This is a process that looks like I'm gonna need to continue in the next stream, which will be tomorrow. I am still gonna be streaming the project stream until I get more critique submissions, and then once there are enough, on Fridays I'm gonna be doing the critique stream instead. So now that I added more lashes to the left eye, I'm gonna have to thicken these here as well. And something that I mentioned before, I think she has like, I don't think that she has extensions, but she has very long lashes. I mean, I'm sure it's mascara, but like this seems to be more accurate than it was before. And just to show how long they actually are. And I'm still kind of hesitant about the blush. Kind of like it without it, but with it, it's not too bad either. And also, I'm gonna have to change the color of the inside of the nostril into more of a skin color tone. So this right here, which is gonna be in the lines layer, I'm gonna have to give it a change. By first making it lighter so that it has a certain color, it's not just black, and then going over into color balance and changing it to that, to like a reddish tone. not only that, but it's also supposed to be slightly protruding. Uh-oh, wrong layer. I'm only now noticing this extra bit of detail. Made a little tooth in there. All right, y'all. I think this is going to be it for the night. There's still plenty to go. Some more experimenting to do. But the fun part was I was able to bring the eye color to life. And it's pretty close, but there's still some detail that I'd like to improve. Particularly, I'm going to try to do that now real quick before I end the stream. Yeah, it's kind of there. Not really. Still have to do some more work on there. I think also have to increase this is why it gets hard to let go as I'm progressing through it, because I want to get more and more of it done. And this layer has seen a lot. Uh-oh. I'm gonna see how much I actually... Oh, yeah. I get carried away and I just stop paying attention to the layers. But nothing that can't be fixed. I didn't do too much on there. Alright, y'all. This is it. Thanks for tuning in. If you guys enjoy the content, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Same time and place, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be doing pretty much this stream again. So at 8 p.m. it's going to be drawing comics and not drawing comics, figure drawing. And then at 9 p.m. I'm going to be doing more work on the project. And before I go, I'm going to bring this to the foreground. I feel like it's also an important little detail. Yeah, that's it. All right, guys. See you soon.